Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. And I have a special treat for you guys today. Today we are doing another one of my famous poster board videos. And I got some great news. I went to my financial team and I said, I create a small Timmy Kimmy Poindexter-like YouTube channel from my basement office. And I film all of these videos late at night when most normal, sane people are fast asleep. Right now, I have a budget of $1.98 to film these videos with. I would like to double that budget for this month only so that I could shoot some more poster board videos to educate my audience on how the antiques and collectibles trade truly works from a financial perspective. And I was lucky that 3 out of 4 of my top financial advisors came back and said, you know what? We will allow you to spend $3.96 for this month only so that you can shoot some more well-educated poster board videos on YouTube. So here we are, guys. I got permission to double my budget this month, and you guys luck out because I'm going to be teaching you the different financial tiers that make up the overall antiques and collectibles trade. And this is vital information, whether you consider yourself a collector, a speculator, an investor, or a dealer. Doesn't matter how you view yourself. If you operate in the antiques and collectibles trade, if you buy, sell, if you invest in any of these markets, this video is going to help you. A lot of the knowledge that I am presenting in this video came from some of my previous mentors in the trade who made a lot of money during the junk wax era of sports cards and also the modern era comic book boom that took place in the early 1990s before it bust. And also a lot of Beanie Baby collectors and investors back then gave me this information that I am sharing with you now. Now, I want to be 100% clear here. This is going to be a little bit controversial for some of the Timmys, Kimmys, and Poindexters out there, okay? If you're one of the individuals that keep coming into my comment section, that keeps attempting to send me emails telling me, Sean, you don't understand. Everybody loves video games. Everybody loves Pokemon. I don't think that you understand the fundamentals when it applies to video games and Pokemon. These are not baby boomer collectibles. These are the future of the antiques and collectibles trade. Now, if you have that mindset, I hate to say this, but you're operating under the mantra or you're Jules in the movie Pulp Fiction, when in all actuality, you're the Gimp. And I hate to say this, but a lot of the Timmys, Kimmys, and Poindexters that keep having that mindset that thinks that their favorite collecting category, just because it's popular right now, exists solely in a vacuum, outside the devoid of the fundamentals of the overall antiques and collectibles trade, and also outside the fundamentals of business, economics, and finance, those particular Timmys, Kimmys, and Poindexters are easily manipulated. Some of these individuals, I hate to say this, these were some of the same people that got taken advantage of during the great video game bubble when a lot of games came into the market. The market was allegedly manipulated. Prices shot through the roof. And a lot of these individuals kept going hardcore in, right? Diamond hands. I'm putting it all in graded video games. Everybody loves Nintendo. Everybody loves Super Mario. Everybody loves Zelda. And what happened? The bottom fell out. And a lot of these high-profile speculators, Timmys, wannabe investors, they ended up losing 40, 50, 60, 70, 80% of the money that they invested in this market. And now they're asking me, hey, Sean, when are these items going to go back up in price? And you have to explain the way a speculative bubble usually works is even if these items go back up in value, a lot of them are not going to hit their previous all-time highs because, again, that market was allegedly manipulated. And we saw this before in the graded coin market that occurred during the 1980s. Well, this time it was much worse because we had a lot of social media influencers involved. We had a lot of online collecting forums. Back in the 1980s, there was no internet. There was no YouTube. In the year 2023, when a market catches fire, it really catches fire. And what is it that I tell you guys always on this channel? If you're selling antiques and collectibles and you're attempting to make a profit, you always sell into the hype. You do not buy into the hype. You learn to recognize the hype. And if you have an emotional attachment to these items, you pull back from the market. If you have the items in question and you're ready to let them go, you can make a serious amount of money when a market like that pops. Even if you're not the one that is allegedly manipulating it. You can just ride the wave and you can make a shit ton of money in these markets. I've personally done it. So this is going to be a very vital video for you guys. Now, before we start here, you need to understand that what I have written on this particular poster board, if you can't read it, because I always get criticism, Sean, the way that you're shooting this video, I can't read what's written on the poster board. This is for my benefit, not yours. This is so I don't go off on a tangent and this video becomes 2 hours long, because nobody in their right mind that could pass a psychological evaluation wants to sit and listen to me talk for 2 hours about the antiques and collectibles trade. You got to be insane if that's what you want. So with that being said, I'm going to go through and explain everything that's written here in case you can't see it. Make no mistake, okay? Now, another thing that you need to know before we go any further, the dollar signs that I have here represent the value amount of a collectible that we're talking about in each of these categories. So we're going to start with $1, items that are worth $1, and we're going to eventually go all the way through this list to items that are worth $100,000 or more. Now, I am going to stop at $100,000 because the average person, even most wealthy individuals watching this channel right now, most of you, that will be the max that you're going to pay for most antiques and collectibles. I am a consultant in the antiques and collectibles trade. Shameless plug, if you want to use my services, send me an email at reservedinvestments@gmail.com. On that note, though, I do have high-profile clients that come to me in like the high-end art market that do spend millions upon millions of dollars on one piece of art. It is insane. I am not going to cover that particular tier in this particular video because, again, I don't want to waste your time because it applies to a very small segment of the overall population that chooses to invest and diversify in the overall antiques and collectibles trade. Don't get me wrong. Before I go on, I do want to state this. The high-end art market is extremely fascinating. I encourage all of you, if you have a passion for understanding how these markets work, you should read books and articles on the high-end art market to get an education in that market. But most individuals are not paying millions of dollars for a painting. So I want to make that clear. So here's where we're going to start. We're going to start by talking about speculators. Then we're going to move in to understanding the financial tiers that investors utilize to analyze these markets, whether it be over the short term or over the long term. Now, this is what you need to know. When you start off on the lower end of the spectrum, we're talking items that sell for $1 to $100, or even in certain cases, $101 to $500. The average person can afford to buy those items, almost regardless of what they do for work. Now, obviously, there's people out there that are struggling to get by. They make minimum wage. Maybe they have a disability. Maybe they're young. Maybe they're in high school. They're not at a point yet where they can regularly go into the market and keep paying hundreds upon hundreds of dollars for speculative collectibles. I get that. But overall, if you are a career-established, career-oriented individual, most of us watching this channel can afford to pay, even if we need to, several $100s for certain collectibles if we want to speculate or attempt to invest in these markets. This is very important to understand. The reason why right now certain collecting markets are on fire, markets like Lego, markets like Nintendo Amiibo and related video game products, markets like Pokemon, markets like Magic the Gathering, markets like Funko Pops, markets like current modern vinyl pressings, meaning record albums and the like. The reason why those markets are on fire right now is because the manufacturers know this and they understand that the individuals that have an emotional attachment to those items, the individuals that want to attempt to speculate in those items, because they're priced low enough, they will buy more of those items. The barrier to entry, if you want to collect, speculate, or attempt to invest in Pokemon cards from the modern era, the barrier to entry is extremely low. This is why I get into arguments so much with Pokemon collectors who try to tell me, Sean, you don't understand. It's Pokemon. It's really popular. It's going to be the next big thing. It is right now a hot collecting market. That doesn't mean anything, though, over the long term. Collectible markets operate from a different standpoint than that of antique markets. Antique markets are more cyclical. Collecting markets are more linear. They really don't change until they attempt to exist and make the test of time to the point where they can cross over and become antiques. And for a collecting market to do that, it has to be around for more than 100 years. Remember, guys, the simple definition of an antique is an item 100 years of age or older. It has nothing to do with the value of the item. Always remember that. Collectibles, all is what the definition of a collectible is an item that sells for more than its original retail price. So if you have a comic book with a 25-cent cover price on it, and today it's worth $1, technically that's a collectible. It doesn't matter if it's a key issue or not. Value does not factor into these equations from an investment standpoint as of yet. Remember that. This is also why you have a lot of people that are hoarding a lot of this stuff, whether it be Pokemon cards, Lego sets, factory seal cases of Flesh and Blood, Magic the Gathering products, whatever it is, it's because it's on the bottom tier. Most people can afford to play in this tier. This is why these markets are extremely competitive. If everybody goes to the market and starts dumping all this product all at once, it's going to affect the overall market massively to the point where, obvious economics, supply is going to increase. If demand drops because there's a massive amount of supply now showing up on the market, what happens to the price? The price of this stuff is going to tank. That's why this is the most dangerous realm to remain at. I don't care if you're a Pokemon collector. I don't care if you collect, this one really isn't factory sealed, but factory sealed video games, whatever it is that you do, if you're attempting to stay at this realm, it is very dangerous, especially in the year 2023 and beyond, where there's a social media presence for a lot of these high-profile collectors and investors. There's a lot of market manipulation. You have grading companies, collecting forums, auction houses, all propping up the value of these items at present time. This is why speculation is inherently risky. Now, believe it or not, when we get to items that are selling between $501 and $1,000 a piece, you are still playing in the realm of speculation in most cases. There are some exceptions to this rule. Not going to name them in this video. But just know, remember when the PlayStation 5 came out? Sony didn't make enough units. What happened? Speculators, resellers, they took to the market. They were buying up PlayStation 5 systems like you couldn't believe. They were flipping them on eBay, Amazon, other websites, and they were making a substantial profit. The retail price of a Sony PlayStation 5 is $499. When you factor in tax, you're well over $500. This particular market is still ripe with speculation. Point two I want to make before we go on. Understand that there are very few investment-grade collectibles and antiques at the $500 to $1,000 level. You need to realize this. I have people that reach out to me all the time. Hey, Sean, I saw your video on large size currency. I saw your video on rare coins. I really want to get into that market, but my budget is only $500 to $1,000 per coin or note. What is it that I tell you guys? I'm sorry, the market really isn't for you if you're attempting to invest in it. Now, if you just want to own those items, you have an emotional attachment to them, you can get into collecting coins and currency from the standpoint of spending only $500 to $1,000 a coin. But in most cases, they're not going to be investment grade pieces. You need to understand that. This is why a lot of you guys need to really go for a long walk in the woods, touch grass, go spend some time thinking. Are you really an investor in these markets, or are you more of a speculator? And if you are speculating in these markets, let's say that you buy something for $100 and it goes to $400 or $500. Are you selling into the hype, or are you just hoarding it, saying, you know what? I really love Pokemon. I'm so glad that that booster box of Evolving Skies is now at close to $500 because I only paid $110 for my particular booster box. Do you see the mentality difference? Someone like me looks at something like that and goes, well, you know, I paid $100 for this. I can 4 times my money. I'm selling into the market. Because if I want to go into the market at any given time and buy a booster box, a factory seal booster box of Evolving Skies, I can do it. The market's buried with those particular products. The reason why, if you're a Pokemon collector or if you're a speculator, you don't think it is buried with those products is because everybody's hoarding them at present time. It's just like what happened with Pez dispensers back in the early to mid 1990s, Beanie Babies, Pogs, Atari, Coleco, and television video games. Believe it or not, massive speculative bubble on that stuff. Back when eBay first premiered in 1995, when it was called Auction Web, you used to get a shit ton of money for just a regular Atari 2600 with 20 games. You could get $100 for that particular setup back in the mid 1990s. And I was getting in arguments with people. This is a massive speculative bubble. This is not going to last. Today, go look what an Atari 2600 with like 10 or 20 games goes for on eBay. If you would have attempted to invest in that particular item back in the mid-1990s versus putting that money in an S&P 500 index fund, I'm sorry to tell you, but you lost your proverbial ass. Again, you're the gimp in the movie Pulp Fiction. You are not a wise speculator or investor operating in these markets. Anybody should have been able to see the writing on the wall as it relates to pre-Nintendo video games and systems back in the 1990s. I was getting into huge debates with people over this. Now, I don't want to go off on a tangent on that in this video, so let's go back to our wonderful tiers of investing and speculating in the antiques and collectibles trade. Now, when you get to items that are valued between $1,001 to $2,000, congratulations. You've hit tier 1 of investing in the antiques and collectibles trade. Now, obviously, the collecting category that we're choosing matters. If you come to me and you go, hey, Sean, I want to invest in high-end historical documents, and I only have $1,000 to $2,000 to spend, probably not a wise move because you're not going to get anything near worth investing in that price range as it relates to that collecting category. Now, to be fair, there are some banknotes, pieces of currency. There are some coins that you can get in this price range that might be on the cusp of investing in. I'm not going to get into specifics here, but the $1 1899 Black Eagle silver certificates, they would fall in this category. If you're looking at coins, certain late date walking Liberator half dollars in MS64, MS65 condition, they would qualify in this area. So there is some stuff that you can make an argument for. Hey, Sean, I'm going into coins, currency, a mature and sophisticated market. I only have $1,000 to $2,000 to spend on some of this stuff. Can you make some recommendations where I won't lose my proverbial ass? The answer is yes, but they're going to be few and far between. I want to make that very clear. There's a lot of people that get in arguments with me about this, and they bring up, well, Sean, you know, you could get a 1921 Peace dollar in MS63, MS64 condition in that price range. That's true. In my opinion, though, if you're going to invest in a 1921 Peace dollar, it should be in MS65 condition or better. I hate to break anybody's bubble. Now, are there some Carson City Morgan silver dollars that you can get in this price range that are in MS65, potentially MS66 condition? The answer is yes. Would they qualify as investment grade, investment condition? The answer is yes. So you need to understand that. Now, this is where we start separating the boys from the men, the girls from the women when it comes to investing in these markets. When you start to get into items that sell for anywhere from over $2,000 all the way up to $10,000, you are in what I call the pinnacle peak of investment in these markets. What I mean by that is most people that are operating from even a high-end collecting standpoint or even an investment standpoint, meaning they consider themselves a full-blown investor in these markets, they can afford to play in this pond, even if it's in a limited fashion. Meaning, if little Timmy, Kimmy, or Poindexter learns the basics of how these markets work, and he has a collection of Pokemon cards or video games or comic books, whatever it is, he can, if he watches reserved investments, if he reads the books that I tell him to read in a lot of these videos, and he has an open mind, he can trade up a lot of these low-value items, and he can start flipping them and start buying investment-grade items in these tiers. Now, obviously, when we start talking about items that cost $10,000, it's a little bit of a fantasy to have somebody who are in their 20s who just started speculating in these items to be able to go into the market and buy a $10,000 item. Let's be realistic here. But overall, the average career financially established individual in their 30s, 40s, and 50s can play in this proverbial pond. And here's a quiz for you guys that watch a lot of the videos that I produce. When I hold up a lot of items from my own personal collection, if you go back and you watch the video I just did, I hold up a Batman 232, key Batman issue in CGC 9.6 condition. Another item that I held up was a Star Wars Empire Strikes Back vintage Kenner Toys proof card in AFA 90 condition. I've also done now at least 2 videos on coins and currency where you can see some of the pieces in my collection. Do you notice most of the pieces in my personal collections always retail between $3,000 to $10,000 a piece with few exceptions? That is not by accident, guys. It is because if you take these to a high-profile auction site like Heritage, Hakes, Morphe's Auctions, any other site out there, I'm not naming them all, but any other site that caters to high-end collectors, these particular items are extremely liquid because high-profile collectors and investors pretty much like to invest in this realm because most people who have a little bit of money can afford to play in this realm. And again, if you can't see the poster board, these are items that sell over $2,000 all the way up to $10,000. That is key to understanding investment in these markets, especially over the long term. Now, where it gets tricky is there's a lot of people that come to me and they say, Sean, you don't seem to understand. I'm going after a lot of key comic books, key pieces of currency, key date coins, items that sell from over $10,000 all the way up to $100,000. Now, this is where it gets really difficult. This is what you need to understand. The average person, even a high-profile collector or investor, cannot always afford to play in this particular proverbial pond, especially if they're going after single items that retail for $20, $30, $40, $50, $75, almost $100,000 a piece. This is what people do not realize. This segment of the market and even going above this segment into $100,000 plus items, the market is extremely volatile, especially when there's issues in the overall economy, which is what we're seeing now. This is why on this channel, I spend so much time talking about the hake sale of the Amazing Spider-Man 1 in CGC 9.6 condition that sold for a premium. That sold for like $526,000. It's also why I do a lot of videos when Golden Auctions auctioned off those two Superman books, the Action Comics 1, the Superman 1, that literally sold for well below their previous high price points. The reason why I spend so much time talking about those auction sales, whether they're record-breaking or whether they're in the toilet, is simply to help you guys understand that items of this nature are extremely volatile. I'll give you a great example right now. During the pandemic, a lot of Timmys, Kimmys, and Poindexters were bidding up the price of luxury Rolex watches. Even Hermes Birkin bags were being bid up to the stratosphere during that particular time frame in history. Well, if you look at what happened there, both of those markets, Rolex more in particular than the market for Hermes Birkin bags, they pulled back substantially since their all-time high prices. The average cost of a Rolex, even in today's market, is well over $15,000. And that's if you can even find one available new at retail. Most likely, you're going to have to buy it on the secondary market. The reason why prices pull back so quickly is after the free money that the government was giving out in the form of PPP loans, after that dried up, what happened was very few people could afford to buy those luxury timepieces at the prices they were selling at. This is why when you start getting above $10,000 per item in the antiques and collectibles trade, doesn't matter what category we're talking about, you need to start expecting more increased volatility. Certain markets are better than others when you look at it from a perspective of risk versus reward. For instance, if you're coming to me and you're going to say, hey, Sean, I'm going to spend $15,000 on a Pokemon card. In my opinion, that is a very speculative bet. Pokemon is a very speculative market at present time. It's not established. It's not mature. However, if you come to me and you say, Sean, I want to spend $15,000, $20,000 on a rare banknote or a rare coin. Well, guess what? You upped your odds substantially because now you're on the antique side of the equation. You're not attempting to invest in pop culture items. You are more in a mature, established, sophisticated market. This is what the ugly truth about investing in these markets that people don't want to realize. Going back to what I said about high-end art, the type of person that is spending millions of dollars on a piece of art, he understands business, he understands finance, he understands economics, and he understands how these markets work and operate. If he goes into the market, usually when you're paying millions upon millions of dollars for one single painting, it is usually one of a kind. This is why when we look at the modern masters like Monet, we look at the modern masters or even contemporary artists like Warhol or even Jackson Pollock, we can put in that particular mix. Their pieces are soaring in price simply because they are very limited. When we talk about pop culture collectibles, by and large, most of these items are not rare by nature. If you don't believe me, look at an Incredible Hulk 181. I have an Incredible Hulk 181 CGC 9.4 in my collection. I think I paid $7,500 for that book. During the peak in the pandemic, that book was selling for almost a little over $20,000. Looking back, my mistake was I did not sell that book into the hype. If you look up the value of that book right now, it is nowhere near the high price it was selling for back in the pandemic. Why is that happening? Because it's not a rare book. You have to take into account how many copies are out there and readily available on the CGC census. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Books like Giant Size X-Men 1, Books like Amazing Spider-Man 129, Amazing Spider-Man 300, Incredible Hulk 181. Those books are not rare. You can call up any high-profile comic book dealer. From Greg Reese, great guy, highly recommend him. Bob Storms, another comic book dealer I highly recommend. If you email them, they will be able to, at a certain point, get you that book even in high grade, because those books are readily available on the open market. Now, I know what you're going to say. Well, Sean, let's talk about the last tier here. What about books like an Action Comics 1 that just sold for a record price in 0.5 condition? It sold for like $408,000. Extreme record price for that particular item. I can tell you that market is extremely volatile. The market for high-end pop culture collectibles operates a little different than the market for high-end, mature, sophisticated antiques. This is why you need to have all this information front and center if you're attempting to invest in these markets. Again, quick review. The barrier to entry is extremely low on low-value collectibles like Pez dispensers, Pokemon cards, Amiibo, video games, Funko Pops, even video game systems. Whatever it is, the reason that those particular items sell for a very low price is the manufacturer knows that they can pretty much gauge the secondary market and they can feed into it in this environment that we find ourselves in, where all the Timmies, Kimmies, and Poindexters and younger individuals are flocking to collectibles, more specifically modern era collectibles, as an asset class. Even Nike, makers of Nike Air Jordans, they look at these markets from this same perspective and they say, hey, look at this. We can up the price on these sneakers and the Timmies will still buy them. And if we limit supply on the back end, now the Timmies, Kimmies, and Poindexters will consider these sneakers an investment. They'll buy more of them and we'll actually make more money by actually making less. Lego does this on a regular basis with some of their more expensive sets. They know that little Timmy S. Poindexter Jr. coming into a Lego store with his parents, most likely they're not going to buy him an $850 AT-AT Ultimate Collector Series Lego set. That's going to sell to the serious AFOL, adult fan of Lego, collector / speculator. You need to understand this. Therefore, if you're attempting to invest in any of these markets, your sweet spot from an investment standpoint is right here. Items that sell for over $2,000 all the way up to $10,000. This is why when you look at collections from high-profile investors online, most of the items that they have fit perfectly in that category. That is the end of the video today. I hope you got something out of this. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I already know what the Timmies, Kimmies, and Poindexters are going to say about this particular video and the talking points here within. I may address their particular complaints and issues with this video in another video, because the Timmies, Kimmies, and Poindexters, I know that you guys think that you're jewels from the movie Pulp Fiction. I'm sorry to say, you guys are the Gimp at best. And at worst, you're Marcellus Wallace in that scene towards the end of the movie in the pawn shop that we can't talk about. So I'm sorry, it's just how I feel. This is me giving you free knowledge about investing in the antiques and collectibles. Do whatever you want with it. That being said, I'm off to bed. Thank you and have a great night.